I'm actually going to show you something different from what we had done in the past. Huh? So, see, let me, I'll stop share for just a moment and we'll come back to this. So, see, Excel is primarily a spreadsheet software, okay? So what do we mean by a spreadsheet software as opposed to, let's say, SQL, for example, right? Or maybe Python or some other software. What is it that differentiates Excel? I hope you guys are able to hear me all right. Is there any lag?
Yeah. No lag.
Okay. So, so what it differentiates is that, just like if you look at the Excel screen, right? So basically, let me just turn the screen sharing on at this point. Okay, so this is a Excel. This is Excel interface, right? So one of the things that differentiates a spreadsheet software is that each cell is like a mini program in itself. Okay, and each cell also has an address. So for example, this one is D5. Okay, and each cell is like a mini program in itself. So for example, if I type in equals 5 plus 6, okay, so it equals 11, right? So it has calculated, it has shown that number right there. And so for example, if I write another function saying equals this, okay, plus 3, for example, okay, then it reads the value in D6, okay, and then it does the calculation plus 6. Now if I change this number, so for example from 11 I change this to 10, for example, okay, then what it does is it basically instantly recalculates, okay, this number, okay, which is basically whatever D6 plus 3, so it equates that to 13. Okay, so what it actually does is that how many ever cells there are in the whole sheet, it is constantly recalculating everything. Okay, so if there are 1,000 cells, then those 1,000 cells are recalculated every time a cell is changed. You guys get what I'm saying? Okay, so this is the nature of this kind of software. Okay, so where does it work well? There is one scenario where it works really, really well. Okay, I'm now trying to get to the use case. Okay, so there are situations where you're trying to make a decision or you're trying to understand how things work. Okay, and let's take one example. Let's take okay, let's take the COVID situation, right? So COVID situation, you know that there are a number of scenarios in which we don't know what these businesses are and whether they are going to survive or not. Okay, do you guys know this? Okay, so in US specifically, people are talking about zombie companies. Okay, zombie companies. In Japan, I think looks like it's a norm. Okay, people are saying this is Japanization of companies or zombification of companies, which means take a company called Hertz. Okay, you know Zoomcar?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And there are a few other companies also. Sorry, go ahead, Jairam.
Yeah, we know. I meant to say, like, yeah, we are aware of.
Yeah. So it is a car rental company, right? Self-drive rental car, right? So if you look at that kind of a company, their revenue would have come down practically to zero, right? Why? Because you don't want to use another car which many other people would have used. So there is the risk of, or at least the perception of risk, right, of that kind of a car is very high, right? Just like even metro, right? You don't use metro these days. It has been turned off completely because you feel that the risk associated with that is very high, right? Similarly, Zoom also you don't want to use. Has anybody used Zoom in the recent past? Right? No, right? At least have you seen? Maybe as an exception, as it is, you're not going out, so the chance of using that is very limited. So there's a company called Hertz in the US, which is sort of similar, which is self-drive car. Okay, and they actually used a very quote-unquote leveraged model. Okay, which means that they have borrowed lots of money. Okay, and they have purchased cars using that borrowed money. Okay, and now they want to use that for rental, those cars for rental. Now, because of the pandemic, once the revenue has come down dramatically, right, you are still left with all the fixed costs, which is the employee costs, then the depreciation itself of all the cars, the office rental, and not to mention the interest component. Now you don't know if the company is going to survive or not. Okay, so how do you know if whether it will survive or not?
You have to test out guesses like how long the duration will last based on what is the cost that you are thinking.
Yes.
You get a reference.
So basically what you do is you have assumptions, right? And you try to model it, right? So when you model, you can put in all the assumptions saying, okay, how long is the recession going to last? You can have that as an assumption, right? You can see how is the demand going to come up, right? Okay, and what are your costs? How many employees do you have? What are their salaries? So you may have renegotiated rentals with some of the the landlords or whoever is the owner of that particular property, right? You would have renegotiated. Now this is a complex amalgamation of various pieces of information, right? And you are also playing various assumptions. How long is the pandemic going to last is not an easy assumption. See, remember some time ago we were looking at that credit card spend, right? You could see that for fast food, they were able to come back up more or less like what they were last year, very quickly when compared to a number of other businesses. Now, this information is coming up, and as it comes up, you will have to now take a call on, let's say, whether or not to run that company, for example, right? Or how to run that company, right? So, for example, you might say, okay, now that interest rates have come down, I will refinance the older loans with newer loans where the interest rate would come down. Maybe for some of them it is possible, some of them it is not possible, right? Anyways, I think you got the point. You're actually trying to run various assumptions and then see how things are going to be. Just so you know, Hertz is currently, or it was the second largest car rental company in the US. Okay, and at this point in time they have declared bankruptcy. Okay, so which means the company no longer exists, or it is being wound up at this point in time. Okay, however, there are a number of other companies where the company itself, so there is a difference between solvency and liquidity. Solvency means you don't know whether this company can exist. Okay, so if their revenues have come down, and for the next 2 years, if it's not going to survive, and if you want to continue to pay, all the fixed costs that you have, do you think the company is going to survive? The company cannot survive, right? So, so there are a number of companies where even though the solvency is not there, because of market conditions, because the Federal Reserve has, put money into the market, they started buying bonds, right? So they started to have money in their hands, and so because they have money in their hands, they are able to pay salaries and all the costs and all of that. So they are surviving for now, but this profitability is not there. If the profitability is not there, they cannot survive, right? Now let's say if you are an investor, for example, and you are trying to think, okay, is this company going to survive? See, right now the market is high, so the shares are surviving. They are still sort of higher than what the intrinsic worth is. Now you are thinking, okay, should I put money into this, right? if you want to put money into this, which company do you put money, right? Now, those people also create this kind of financial models, okay? So whenever you have this kind of situations, and this is not necessarily where an external party is trying to evaluate a company, but also internally also many times you create this kind of models, okay? So so in this kind of a situation, spreadsheets are, you know, God sent tool, so to say, right? Because every time you make a change in the assumption, right, you want to just input that assumption and see what the revised scenario is. You may want to evaluate, okay, is this company going to survive, right? Or when will this company survive, or what assumptions will make this company survive? These are all the things that you're trying to evaluate, okay? So so for that kind of a scenario, so I'm going to now show you an example of one such model. We used to do a lot of financial models in the past, okay? So if you look at this, so let me just give you a quick overview of this. And what I hope to do today is, I would like to show you how some of the tools are used here and sort of unwrap them and show you how they are used, okay? So this is a good way of understanding how functions are used or how specific tools are used. So I'm not going like a serial number, function 1, function 2 kind of a thing, but here I'm going to show you some of the tools that got applied here and what are those tools and how you can potentially use them, okay? So let's look at this. This is called a financial model. Basically, let me just run you through this, and then I will show you some of the features that are used in this, okay? So for example, you have what are called revenue assumptions, okay? So on the top you can see there is a specific chart right here, right? Let me just show that to you. So okay, there you go. There is revenue on the y-axis, and on the x-axis you have time, and you have certain types of revenue. You have what's called monthly revenue, license fee, total transaction based, implementation services. These are the various services that the revenue streams that the company has. Below you have what's called client 1, you have client 2, client 3, client 4, and so on and so forth, okay? You can see all of this, okay? So these are all revenue assumptions, right? Then there is certain functionality here. We'll come to that a little later. You have what is called a rate card, okay? So there are certain assumptions and, you know, certain percentage of revenue that you want to charge them, etc. Then you have salaries. So these are all the assumptions of a salary. So you have various employees and all of that. These guys have some people in Cambodia or something. So they have Cambodia-based employees and all of that you will see a little later. And you have various sort of salary assumptions and so on, okay? And then you have hiring assumptions. So when are various people going to be hired? So you can see these are all the months going from left to right. You can go from 2020 to 2024, okay? You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? And you are actually saying, okay, how many employees and when are they going to be hired? Okay, so you can see the assumptions right here. These are all the hiring assumptions. And then you have various cost assumptions, okay? And then you have what is called the income statement, okay? So based on all the revenue that you have earned, right? So when is each of those, when are the various revenues, when are they going to accrue? And you also have the cost of revenue and so on and so forth, okay? And you have various operating expenses, profit, net income, so on and so forth. And you also have what's called a cash flow statement, which is derived out of the income statement, okay? So similarly, you have this is the monthly income statement. This is the annual income statement. So you go from 2020 to 2024, and it sort of sums up all the revenue on an yearly basis. Okay, so and you go revenue, cost of revenue is the type of cost that you have, and then you have operating expenses and so on. These are all the operating expenses. You can see R&D expenses, okay, sales and marketing expenses, general and marketing expenses, and so on and so forth. And you have what is called a cash balance. That is what you are seeing here. but actually net margin is the output of the income statement. Okay, and then you have depreciation if you have various costs, right? And so the costs are going to be depreciated. Fixed costs are going to be fixed asset related costs are going to be depreciated, and this is how the depreciation schedule is, and so on. Okay, there is a sort of a dashboard mock-up, and then you have budget versus actual, and so on and so forth. There are certain working capital assumptions, like so for example, if you have raised an invoice, when is how long are they going to take to pay that? Okay, so for example, in this case it says in 60 days it's going to be paid. Okay, so accounts payable, similarly you have a certain assumption saying how long are you going to get in order to pay your costs, right? So these are all the various assumptions. You see how many assumptions are playing into this whole thing, right? So like I mentioned to you, so this is a financial model wherein if you change an assumption, for example, then the assumption is going to be input into the whole model, and all the numbers are going to be recalculated, and it will present you with a revised one. So for example, here, see, there is something called, I don't know what this assumption is, but let's say the implementation services is an assumption. Let me just see where it's, so it's going to be calculated only in like 2024. It has certain thing, let me just see. Okay, so you have decent amount of sort of numbers right here. So you can see this. So let's see this. Okay, so this is for client number 1. Okay, and I will change this assumption, and I think you will be able to see that over here. This is for client 1. I think right now it is showing information for client 1. Okay, so let's say from 66%, I'll just make it 2%, and I think because this is implementation services, you will see this blue line, which is not very clearly visible, right? That's going to change. All right, see, just observe that. Okay, you see that? Is that clear? Okay, some things have changed here. Okay, I'll sort of bring it back to whatever 70% or something like that, some random number. Okay, so all right, so what has happened just now is that it has, in this case, it has only shown the revenue. So it has basically recalculated the revenue, and it has shown it in the chart here, right? So similarly, you can change some of these. So for example, if you change the salary assumptions, which is a much bigger cost, right? Obviously, for maybe for this kind of a company, maybe salary is a big one. If you change that, you will be able to see the impact of what has happened on the income and all of that. So typically, there are also other calculations that will be made. But anyway, so you got the point. Let me just stick to some of these things given the interest of time. So let me just show some functionality here, and I will sort of unwrap some of these things for you guys. Okay, so you can see here you are given an option in revenue assumptions to select a different client. So for example, you can select client number 2, and you can see two things have happened. One is it has gone to client number 2, and I'm now able to see the assumptions and how the calculation is happening for client number 2, and also the chart has changed. Okay, so these are the two things that have happened. So let me show you how this thing works. Okay, so here so you have let me I think it is in insert. You will be able to find let me just see that over here. I think it's not illustrations, but I think you have oh, it's in developer, right? So I can actually insert. These are all ActiveX controls that can be installed here, but let me just show that to you. So for example, so yeah, these are form controls, and this is ActiveX control. And in the form control, you have what's called a this is a combo box. Is it? No, I think it's the no, it is. There's a drop down actually. Let me just see what this is. List box form control. Let me just try this. I think this is the one. Let me just try this. It's called the combo box. Okay, yeah, this is the one. Okay, so if you right click this, so this is how you insert that. Okay, but what happens here is something like this. So let me just delete this for now. So this is how you insert that combo box. But what you can do is, if you go to format control, you have an option to give input range. Okay, so these are the various things you have. You have the size, you have the protection, properties, alt text and control. These are the various things, but this is the one that's most useful. So and when you click on this, so here I'll be able to show it to you here. Okay, so there you can see you have the client name listed. You can see client 1, client 2 going up to client number 20, and you can also see where it links to. Okay, so whatever is the input of that, the number, it directly shows right here. So it is BZ1. You can see BZ1 right there. Okay, let me just show you how this works. So for example, if I change this to client number 3, you could see that it changed to 4 before it scrolled back, right, guys? Were you guys able to see it, or you didn't observe it? Maybe let me just do that again one more time for you guys. Okay. So this is the one. Okay. So there is code that also scrolls. Okay. So that's why it's going back. So it will happen very quickly. So please. Okay. So I'm changing that to, let's say, 6. Okay. It changed to 7 before it came. Do you guys observe that?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. So this is what happened. So you change this, and whatever is the input, okay, sort of it changes. Okay, so whatever it is linked to, the number changes, and based on the number you can look up the relevant value. Okay, so let me just go back here. So assign macro, yes. So in assign macro there was some code written, so let me just go to that. So there is an interplay of both VBA code as well as Excel. So to the extent it is relevant, I will show it to you guys. Okay, because it's relevant to figure out what functionality is used here. Okay, so so this is what's happening right here in this particular code. Okay, so what it's saying is, so you are assigning value X. Okay, so whatever is there in that BZ1 value, you're assigning that to X. Okay, once it's done, basically it's saying if it is greater than 1, because 1 was used for all clients. Okay, let me just show that to you again for you. So 1 was used for all clients. Okay, so because of that, so it is having to deduct 1 to arrive at the right kind of the right number of the client. Okay, so it's deducting 1 to set up the value for the client number. Okay, and then what it's using is, it is using that to scroll down to the appropriate place. Okay, and so that is how this scrolling is happening. So let me show that to you. You use 7, it will go to 7. Okay, 10, it will go to 10, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is how the scrolling is happening. And then what this is doing is, basically it is resetting the information related to these charts. Okay, and that is how the chart modification has happened. Clear? Okay, but till now it's clear now. Okay, so I'll just bring this back. Okay, so okay, so that is so far as the select client is concerned. Okay, then okay, so then you have what is called the rate card right here. So the rate card here is used something like this. So for example, if you have client number 1 here, you click on rate card, there is another sheet called rate card right here, and it will show you the rate card that is relevant for that particular client. Okay, let me just go back right here into the revenue assumptions. Let me so for example, you can look at, so I will, let me just get to the right client here. So this is client number 1. Okay, so client number 1, you can see rate card number 4. Okay, you click on the rate card. So essentially the assumption here is that, okay, if I'm looking at client number 1 and if I want to view the rate card for that particular client, how do I do that? So that is what we are trying to do here. All right, okay, so you click on the rate card, it goes and selects rate card number 4. You guys are able to see that? Okay, so how it's done here is like this. So once again, there is a bit of a VBA code. So click on edit, you can go here. So basically what it's doing is, it is looking up BZ1 value, which is, you are actually looking up the client that was selected here. Okay, and then it is sort of using some logic to say, okay, if it is 1, go to this particular thing, if it is 2, go to this particular thing, and so on and so forth. It is sort of manually done to achieve a specific purpose. Financial models sort of tend to be like this because you're trying to go there. So here, because client number 1 is selected and you have rate card number 4, you click on this, you go to rate card number 4. Let me see if I can select let's say rate card number 1. See here, I can actually select the rate card for that particular client. Now I have selected rate card number 1. Okay, and I click on rate card. Now it goes and selects rate card number 1. Clear, na? Yeah. Okay. So so anyway, so this is so this is sort of meant for a specific purpose. So I'm just explaining what's done here. Okay. So here you have one other functionality called next client. Okay, previous client. You can actually go to next client. Are you guys able to see the client number is changing there? Okay, 4, 5, and so on. It's going back and so on and so forth. Can you guess how this is being done?
Maybe it will store some sort of values for number of times we click next client.
Yeah, this is a simple thing. This was a trick question actually. Just for fun, I was just trying to do that. So here it only actually scrolls down by 10 rows. That's all. Because we made sure that it is 10 rows, it will just keep going by 10 rows each time. So this is previous client. It basically says, can you read this? Active window, small scroll down equals 10. Okay, which means every time you click that, it's basically going to scroll like 10 rows. That's all. So see, similarly you can see this. Oh, we are already at previous the earliest client. You can keep doing this. You can keep doing this. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so this means something to the client. From a technology standpoint, it's not great. It's not like earth-shattering function or something like that, but it does something for the client. Okay. Okay. So let me see. Okay. So let me just give you. See, there is a specific functionality that I want to. See, I'm sure all of you would have used charts, right, in the past, right, in Excel, right? So, but there is a specific functionality. So here, this is very simple. What is it doing here? It is selecting a certain range, and that range has like these, monthly license fee, transaction-based, and implementation services. These are the 4 different types of series that it has, and it's plotting that. Okay, but here it is doing something different, which is interesting, and I thought I'll show it to you guys. This is not conspicuous or not usually visible. So for example, if you see, it shows Jan, Feb, March, blah blah blah, and it has it shows 2020 as the year for all of these months. Do you guys know how to do this? Okay, so let me just show that to you guys. Okay, so this is a very simple chart technique that you use, and so it does this. So basically, this is what I have done here. So Jan to December, I have certain data right here, and I have put 2020 on the top. Okay, and then I have 2021. Similarly, I have Jan to December, and so on and so forth. Okay, and I have done this for 2 years for demonstration. So what you do is you insert a chart, okay, and you select 2020 on the top and Jan, Feb, March, and then it will give you this kind of a approach. Okay, this kind of an output. Clear now? Okay, so you can also do one more thing, which is, let's say if you insert quarters. Let me just get rid of these. So if you insert quarter, so for example, right now, right here, so I insert, okay, one more row, and for each quarter, I put in the quarter number, and it sort of recognizes that. Okay, what did I do? Sorry, this is Q2. Okay, so July, Q3, and so on and so forth. And are you guys able to see the quarters being inserted?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so on. So this is how it works. So basically, you insert Q4 also, I think, and it will look a little better. Let's say Q4. Okay, so there you go. I think it has gotten a little bit more even right now. And similarly for the rest of the quarters and so on. Okay. So all right. So sorry, this is not relevant. Let me go back to this one. So All right, so this is one thing, and let me just give you one function, okay, and then we will move on. Okay, I'll sort of choose a sort of simpler one, okay. I will still show you that function that I wanted to show, but I will take a simpler one just in the interest of time. Let me just okay, this one. All right, so you can see here that there is this particular CTO, okay, for which salary is being calculated. Okay, so here you can see it is salaries by role. Okay, and when you look at this, it is using a function called VLOOKUP. We will come to VLOOKUP a little later. Okay, but you see something interesting here, which is it says equals VLOOKUP and it says salary table in between. Okay, so what is this salary table and how do you insert? So does anyone know VLOOKUP?
Yeah.
Okay, SWAP knows VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP is one of those functions that is extensively used in wherever people use Excel. People use VLOOKUP like a lot. Okay, VLOOKUP is one function. We'll come to that in the next one. Okay, if you are curious, you can look up that. Okay, this is something that will be interesting for you. All right. Okay, but see, generally, so here it is supposed to use a range, but instead it uses what's called quote unquote salary table. Okay, and how does this work? Okay, so let me just show you how that works. So Excel has a functionality to give a name to a specific range. Okay, so for example, you have this. So for example, so let me just type in some numbers. Okay, I actually have some numbers right here now, so I'll just use that. This one. Okay, so for example, so let's assume this whole thing, okay, is revenue, for example. Okay, let's assume, it is in millions or maybe in billions if you like. All right. Okay, so, and you want to call that every time you want to refer to revenue. Now what you have to do is you have to come back and select the whole range. Okay, so for example, if I want to give revenue total, okay, revenue total, right? So I have to come here, equals, I have to say sum, I have to go there, I have to keep going like this, or if you are using mouse, you have to keep going all the way. And when you are done, right, and then you hit enter, so that is how you will get the revenue total. Okay, you can see that, right? So by the way, F2 is what you use for seeing the function. Okay, just so you know. All right. So instead what you can do is you can just select this whole thing. Okay, and then you can call this I'm naming that over here. This is one of the ways of naming a range. Okay, so I'll call this revenue total. All right, and I hit enter, so that becomes revenue total range. Okay, so what you can do is you can say equals, okay, sum of. Now you can start using revenue total as a range, and then you can hit, oh sorry, I have to select that revenue total. Okay, and now I can use that as a range. So how does it help? So remember, we talked about how to make functions sort of communicate a little better. So you write a function, right, and you want to make it a little more intelligible, right? Then you can use this to say, okay, equals, revenue total times 2, for example. Now you are able to understand it very well, as opposed to saying equals basically revenue, which is whatever range D5 to whatever D22 or whatever the D what is this range? So D5 to A15. Okay, so if A5, so if you say that, it is a bit difficult, but if you say equals revenue, it is very easy. So it is easy for you to communicate that in English. Okay, there is one more.
Yeah,
Jairam.
So for example, currently you have selected some like 24 cells and you named it as revenue total.
Yes.
If you have, edit it, maybe like increase or reduce cell, how flexible it's and how we
It
can
is
do that?
flexible. Okay. So let me quickly answer that. So I think it is in formulas. You'll be able to see. Yeah, you have what is called a name manager. Okay. In this, so this is the one that we just created. You can just modify it. Okay. So you can change that wherever you like.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah.
You can increase, decrease. Yeah, whatever. You can even comment it. You know, if you want to, like give some description, etc. You can do that. Yeah.
Chaitanya, if you,
Yeah.
Chaitanya, if we rename the revenue total, will that be applied back into a formula?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So why don't we just check that? I think it does. Let me just check that. Okay. So edit. So instead of revenue total, you call it revenue total 2, for example, and hit OK. All right. And close. So see, the formula still functions. So it says revenue total 2. Right. Yeah, this is a big deal because if you have used it like 200 times in the model, right, it all gets taken care of. Now you wonder, no wonder people still use Excel. All right, okay. So, yeah, where was I? So this is what I was using. Yeah, so there is a way for you to navigate, okay? So for example, if you are somewhere else, right, and you want to see where that revenue total is, you can just click on that and go straight to that. It gives a great way for you to navigate, the spreadsheet. And you can quickly do that. You don't even have to look for it. You can just quickly do that. You can also do one more thing. So similarly, you can use Control-G, go to. Okay, go to is a very useful function. So from one place you can keep navigating to the spreadsheet. So you have this revenue total too. You can just click on it. You can go straight to that place. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So this is what I had to share. If you have any other questions, we can take those up. Okay, cool. So yeah, that is all for today, guys.